नमो भगवते वासु ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्ति भवति नैष्टिकी शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदयान्तस्थो हि भद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम् ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणीं। Hare Krishna. So we're reading the translations today from Canto 2, Chapter 1, text, I'm just going to confirm, translations from text 15. Sorry. Okay, 15 to 21. Canto 2, Chapter 1, entitled The First Step in God Realization. And we are reading from text 15. Thank you. Translations. At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death. But one must cut off all attachments to the material body and everything pertaining to it, and all desires thereof. Text 16. One should leave home and practice self-control. In a sacred place, he should bathe regularly and sit down in a lonely place, duly sanctified. Text 17. After sitting in the above manner, make the mind remember the three transcendental letters, Om, and by regulating the breathing process, control the mind so as not to forget the transcendental seed. Text 18. Gradually, as the mind becomes progressively spiritualized, withdraw it from sense activities, and by intelligence, the senses will be controlled. The mind, too absorbed in material activities, can be engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead and become fixed in full transcendental consciousness. Text 19. I'm going to read all the translations, and we'll come back to text 19 because that's the verse that we will be discussing today. Thereafter, you must meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth. The mind becomes completely reconciled in him only. Text 20. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature, but one can rectify such conception by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Text 21. O King, by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all-good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direct shelter. Now we will recite the Sanskrit for text 19. Tatraikavayam kavayavayam dhyayed Tatraikavayam dhyayed Avyuchinnena chetasa Mano nirvishayam yuktva Tata kinchana na smaret Padam tat paramam Vishnur Mano yatra prasidati. Let's do it one more time and then we can repeat. Tatraikavayavam dhyayed avyuchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva tatah kinchana nasmaret. Padam tat paramam Vishnur Mano yatra prasidati. Can we repeat? Would you like to repeat? Tatraikavayam dhyaye avyuchinnena chetasaha avyuchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva tatah kinchana nasmaret. Padam tat paramam Vishnur mano yatra prasidati. Do we do one line at a time? One line at a time? Okay, go ahead and proceed. Tatraikavayam dhyayed avyuchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva tata kinchana nasmaret. Padam tat paramam Vishnur mano yatra prasidati. Tatraikavayavam dhyayed avyuchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva tata kinchana nasmaret. Padam tat paramam Vishnur mano yatra prasidati. Okay. Should we do the word for word? Okay. Tatra, thereafter. Eka, one by one. Avyavam, limbs of the body. Dhyayet, should be concentrated upon. Avyuchinnena, without being deviated from the complete form. Chetasa, by the mind. Manah, mind. Nirvishayam, without being contaminated by the sense objects. Yuktva, being dovetailed. Tataha, after that. Kinchana, anything. Na, do not. Smaret, think of. Padam, personality. Tat, that. Paramam, supreme. Vishnu, of Vishnu. Manaha, the mind. Yatra, whereupon. Prasidati, becomes reconciled. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth, the mind becomes completely reconciled in him only. Purport. Foolish persons, bewildered by the external energy of Vishnu, do not know that the ultimate goal of the progressive search after happiness is to get in touch directly with Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. Vishnu Tattva is an unlimited expansion of different transcendental forms of the personality of Godhead, and the supreme or original form of Vishnu Tattva is Govinda or Lord Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes. Therefore, thinking of Vishnu or meditating upon the transcendental form of Vishnu, specifically upon Lord Krishna, is the last word on the subject of meditation. This meditation may be begun from the lotus feet of the Lord. One should not, however, forget or be misled from the complete form of the Lord. Thus, one should practice thinking of the different parts of the transcendental body, one after another. Here in this verse, it is definitely assured that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not impersonal. He is a person, but his body is different from those of the conditioned persons like us. Otherwise, meditation beginning from the pranava, omkara, up to the limbs of the personality of Godhead, up to the limbs of the personal body of Vishnu would not have been recommended by Sri Sukadev Goswami for the attainment of complete spiritual perfection. The Vishnu forms of worship in great temples of India are not, therefore, arrangements of idol worship, as they are wrongly interpreted to be by a class of men with a poor fund of knowledge. Rather, they are different spiritual centers of meditation on the transcendental limbs of the body of Vishnu. The worshipable deity in the temple of Vishnu is identical with Lord Vishnu by the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Therefore, a neophyte's concentration or meditation upon the limbs of Vishnu in the temple, as contemplated in the revealed scriptures, is an easy opportunity for meditation for persons who are unable to sit down tightly at one place and then concentrate upon pranava, omkara, or limbs of the body of Vishnu, as recommended herein by Shukadev Goswami, the great authority. The common man can benefit more by meditating on the form of Vishnu in the temple than on the omkara, the spiritual combination of Om, as explained before. There is no difference between omkara and the forms of Vishnu, but persons acquainted with the science of absolute truth try to create dissension by differentiating between the forms of Vishnu and that of omkara. Here it is indicated that Vishnu form is the ultimate goal of meditation, and as such, it is better to concentrate upon the form of Vishnu than on the impersonal omkara. The latter process is also more difficult than the former. Back to the translation, if you like, you can repeat. Therefore, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth. The mind becomes completely reconciled in Him only. Before I begin, I offer my most respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who has brought the Srimad Bhagavatam and all of our temples with the deities all over the world, and to my spiritual masters, without whom I would never have any qualification except their mercy. Hare Krishna. So we are in the first chapter of the second canto. The title of this chapter is The First Step in God Realization. As all of you know, what has happened so far is that Parikshit Maharaj has been able to give Shukadev Goswami, or present his questions before Shukadev Goswami. He asked him, what is the duty of someone who is about to leave his body? And having explained the circumstances, as we know in the first canto. And this, the beginning of this chapter, which is the second canto, talks about how Shukadev Goswami glorifies that question. He says, your question is amazing. There are many people in this world, well, everybody is asking questions, and most of the other people are giving answers or asking questions of their own. And in the grand scheme of things, many of these questions don't matter, because it's really just a temporary arrangement. So Shukadev Goswami glorifies the question, and then he instructs to Parikshit Maharaj that meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead is what a person should do all the time. It's the best of all occupations. And in these few verses preceding this text, there is description of how the person should meditate. They should leave their home, go to a secluded place, sit properly, meditate. There's also the mention of chanting the transcendental sound vibration of Om. And then here in this verse, the perfection of all meditation is being described, where Shukadeva Goswami is saying that you should meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. And very important in this context is that when you're meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord, don't forget the conception of the whole body, of the transcendental form of the Lord. And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is repeatedly emphasizing that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has a form. He also says that his form is not like the conditioned soul, not like your and my form, but that his form is the supreme. And meditation on that supreme form is not only the subject of the perfection of meditation, but in the end, he says, it's actually easier to do than to meditate on the impersonal form. In the beginning verses, or at least in text 17, where Srila Prabhupada is presenting, or when Shukadeva Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj to meditate on the transcendental sound, Srila Prabhupada spends a lot of time in the purport saying how Om, the sound Om, is non-different from the personal form of the Lord. But because we are, our senses are so needy of a hook, we need something to be fixed upon. It's very hard. The impersonal meditation is very hard. When we're suffering in the heat outside, it's okay to come into the lobby of a really nice mall. As His Holiness Devamrita Swami used to say, that you come into the mall and there's an air conditioner. And it's a relief, because you're so disturbed by the pains of this world. It's a relief to come into the mall and take the air conditioner. But then what next? You can't spend your life in the lobby of the mall. And after some time, when your body has equilibrated with the temperature, then you're like, what now? What do I do now? You can't stand there forever. And that's how the impersonal relief can be described. We are so bothered, hurt, disturbed, let down by the personal interactions of this world. That's something I don't want to deal with anybody. It's better to just be situated in a place where God doesn't have a form, because he cannot hurt anybody like other people do. So he must be impersonal, and we get that relief that, okay, I don't have to deal with people anymore. But that's not the nature of the spirit soul. The spirit soul wants exchange, is personal. And that's why people who usually make progress up to the impersonal level, either or by the mercy of the Lord and his devotees, make the jump to the personal realm of exchange with the Supreme Lord, or they come back to some philanthropic cause, because their mind craves that interaction. And that's what also Sukadeva Goswami explains in the verses preceding, that, I was situated in transcendence, but then I heard from my father about the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I realized that this is the perfection of life. So also in these verses, the preceding verses, Srila Prabhupada talks about the mind very powerfully. He speaks about, this whole thing is about the mind. In this verse also, the word manaha comes twice. It's the mind. Because essentially, it's our mind which is connecting our physical body to the higher realms of our existence. Speaking from, Srila Prabhupada quotes the example of Panchakosh in the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about how we have 5 layers of existence. The spirit soul interacts with the world through 5 layers. The Annamaya Kosh, which is a physical form, which you can see in everybody. There's the Pranamaya Kosh, which is the energy sheet. So, how your energy, how you present yourself with your energy, the prana. And then the 3rd layer is your mind, the mental presence, where we think, feel, and will. The 4th layer is your Vijnanamaya Kosh, which is where the intellect, where you have the wisdom to decide, this is right, this is wrong. And the 5th layer is the Anandamaya Kosh, which is the state of complete bliss. So in your perfect Krishna consciousness, you are situated in that, the Anandamaya Kosh. But most of us, if we're lucky, we're only struggling at the mind level, the manomaya level. Because the mind is a pivotal thing, and I'll quote what Srila Prabhupada says here. The mind connects your physical body and your energy to your rationale, to the intellect. It's the key. that connects the two doors, two worlds. If our mind is not fixed, then we're not able to think from our intelligence. We will not be able to. So the whole process in these verses, it's amazing how Srila Prabhupada is describing, is about controlling the mind. Because we know, we all know here, we're fortunate in the sitting here, we know what the ultimate goal of life is. We know that we have to meditate on the Lord, we have to surrender, there is no other thing that is permanent, but we still struggle, at least I do. We have either physical ailments or we have, most of all, mental difficulties in, just reconciling things in life. So here, I'm going to request you to go to verse 617. In the purport, it's just, I'm going to read this out. I really found it very profound. Srila Prabhupada says, the mind is the pivot of the active sense organs. And as such, if the quality of thinking, feeling, and willing is changed, naturally, the qualities of action by the instrumental senses will also change. The mind is the pivot. Okay, 4 lines from the bottom. The mind, Prabhu, good.
4 lines from the bottom.
You can stop. Done. Yeah. The mind is the pivot of the active sense organs. So how our sense organs are how we interact with the world, or how we fulfill our desires primarily. And as such, if the quality of thinking, feeling, and willing is changed, naturally the quality of actions by the instrumental senses will also change. Why are we talking about, why is Srila Prabhupada referring to thinking, willing, and feeling? Because that's what the mind does. The mind thinks, it feels, and it wills. The willpower comes from the mind. Now you can channel your willpower to either do the right thing or the wrong thing. But it has to be trained. And as we know in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks so much on the untrained mind, the trained mind. And if you read these lines in isolation, I was appreciating Srila Prabhupada's genius, because this is something that a person who has done studies on the mind, like a psychologist or somebody, can tell you. You have to change the qualities of thinking, how we're perceiving things. But it doesn't, in this one line, Srila Prabhupada has essentially condensed the simple formula of how we can control, how we can actually tap into the higher levels of existence by changing the quality of thinking, feeling, and willing. But how do we change that? How do we train our mind? That's an important question. And again, back to the purport that we were doing today. Srila Prabhupada is speaking about how the first step, or the ultimate step, there are many steps. Again, in the preceding verses, there is the reference of breath. Again, breathing techniques, and Srila Prabhupada talks about it. Modern science has so much work on breathing techniques. We tell little children, if you get upset, take a breath. Slow breathe in and breathe out. Why do we do that? Does anybody know why we do that? If you're upset, has anybody ever told you to breathe? Yeah? Just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in and out, and you will feel something's changing. Okay, let's do an exercise. I do this with children, okay? Okay, everybody, put your hand on your heart. Ask your heart to stop. Did it listen to you? Thankfully, we have Jagannath Mishra Prabhu in the room, so if anybody's heart really stops, we can have help. Hare Krishna. So, did it stop? No. Okay, now I want everybody to take a deep breath in. Let's do 2 deep breaths in and out, okay? Breathe in, 1, 2, 3. Breathe out, 1, 2, 3. Another one, in, 1, 2, 3. Out, 1, 2, 3. Now put your hands back on your heart. Do you notice a difference in the pace at which your heart was beating? Anyone? Little bit, because you weren't really running. Yeah, you notice a difference? Thank you. So that's why breath is an important thing, because it controls the ability, it slows down your thought. It's like a ladder. It's a perfect ladder. Your physical body is acting, your breath can help slow things down, and the breath connects the mind to the physical body, and the mind connects the intellect to the breath and the physical body. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is talking about, how breathing, like somebody should breathe. Pranayama is described in the purports. to slow things down to see perspective. That's described as one of the first aspects of meditation. And we know that modern meditation practices focus so much on breathing exercises, visualization. Where do they get it from? They get it from the original scriptures. That breathing, slow your breath down, focus on one point. And in this verse, Sukadeva Goswami is saying, the ultimate object of meditation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because it's the place where your mind is reconciled. Yatra prasidati, which the mind is finally reconciled. Because his form isn't a form of the material realm. Most of the forms that we see, most people that we worship in this world, outside their connection with Krishna, at some point in their life or our life, they will let us down. Or, they will just leave. Even if they're the best person in this world that you ever met, it's most likely that your paths will separate at some point or the other. So it's not a permanent solution. But Krishna and his eternal form and his transcendental form is the permanent situation to hook the mind. One of the other things that in this verse I would like to highlight is the word eka vayavam. So it's a bit of a tongue twister, vayavam. Eka vayavam. And the translation is one by one. So many times we have the tendency, or the impatience rather, to wait for things to manifest in due course. We want now. Our mind is like a 3-year-old, or they want things now. And we don't have the patience to stop, to wait, progress step by step. But here in the verse it is said that you should meditate upon the limbs of Lord Vishnu and one by one gradually move upwards to the progression of transcendence. So it's important to not jump the boat. Like, you're not getting the result, we jump off the boat, but we're anyway not going to get the result if we jump off. Staying in the boat is a part of the journey, is the goal actually. And the second thing is undeviated, which is avyuchinnena. It says undeviated from without being deviated from the complete form. So incremental, one by one, and undeviated. What does undeviated mean to you all? Anyone wants to say what undeviated means? Unwavering, okay. What else? Without distraction. What does it mean to be without distraction? All concentration, right. And yes, Prabhu.
Mind will run away, but keep bringing it back.
Thank you. We didn't sync up on that before. But that's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita too. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. The mind is very wavering. And what is the way to control the mind? Practice and detachment. Practice means that you have to do again and again and again. He's not saying that the mind will not wander. The absence of distraction is not focus. Focus means whenever the mind is distracted, we are aware. Itself, if you sit down and you study your mind sometimes, the train of thoughts that your mind goes through, before you know you're in a different part of the world, sitting right here. That's the nature of the mind. But most people don't recognize that the mind is doing that. They're just sitting there, being drifted away with their mind. But the key is to bring it back. Vaisheshika Prabhu says that life is like a big Govardhan parikrama. In that parikrama, sometimes you will step on stones and sometimes you will step on the soft grass. But you keep walking. Every time you deviate, you come back to the path, and that is steadiness. Steadiness is not a straight line. A straight line means there is no life. There will be ups and there will be downs. And we try to come back to the center. Our effort to come back to the center is what matters. That is what steadiness means. So progressively, one by one, and not being deviated. A beautiful analogy in this regard, which is presented in the scriptures, is that when you pour water in a pitcher or in a bowl, when you pour water is usually splatters when you pour, unless you're an expert at doing it. But when you pour oil, it doesn't splatter. So our consciousness of aspiration for our consciousness is that we should become like that oil, where things are coming in, but we're not getting disturbed. At least that visual representation is helpful. And I think, very practically speaking, how it helps when I can think of challenges that come is to start from the basic layers. We can't expect, if something happens to me, I have an interaction, that I will have the wisdom to act with the perfect Krishna consciousness all the time. But I can take physical measures and mental measures, and eventually I will take the right decision. Because if the senses are not in the control, if the mind is not in control, the philosophy is not going to help you. In action, it can help you when we're talking to somebody in a composed state, but it won't help us in action. So the first step would be just to take a step back, take some deep breaths, and try to bring the mind under control. You can chant, you can look at the form of the deities, and then we can try to, the distance, the space, we have to give the space to ourselves to react. That, for me, is a practical application of this verse as well. Of course, Srila Prabhupada is speaking about, which all of you are very well versed on, that the transcendental form of the Lord in the temple is the center of our meditation. That's why the deities in the temple are so special, because they are actually non-different from the form of Krishna himself. And we're very fortunate that we have access to Krishna. Another beautiful thing that I found in this verse, or rather an analogy, is that there's so much focus on the lotus feet of the Lord. And who knows how that equates to Srimad Bhagavatam. First and the second canto are the lotus feet of the Lord. And all of you are very fortunate that you live in the temple. So many times if there's a trigger that happens, you have the liberty to come and take darshan and try to, stabilize your mind. But many people are not so fortunate and they don't have ready access to the deities. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Maya Muktar Jive Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan Jivera Kripaya Koila Krishna Veda Puran. So taking mercy on the conditioned souls, Krishna appears in the form of Veda Puran, in the form of the scriptures. Because Krishna knows that, the deity forms are not accessible to everyone at all times. But he made scriptures available. That's why all of you were wonderfully distributing Srimad Bhagavatam. You tell people that you can welcome the form of Krishna into your house. And how can we fix our mind on this form of Krishna? By reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, by actually bringing it in our lives. And if you look through the purports, you can see that how, actually if you fix your mind, it stabilizes the mind. It has a profound impact. And in many ways, it has a very lasting impact because it alters the way we think and the way we perceive things. It nurtures our intellect by giving us examples of how real relationships and real things could be done in life. In these verses itself, there is a Falashruti of Srimad Bhagavatam when Shukadev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj how he was informed about the Srimad Bhagavatam. He describes the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he says that, I'm just going to pull out that verse because I think it is, sorry, or maybe somebody can pull it out. There's a verse which says that Srimad Bhagavatam, here. That very Srimad Bhagavatam, so Shukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, this is text 10 from this chapter, that very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you because you are the most sincere devotee of the Lord, one who gives full attention and respect. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. So that's the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam described by Shukadev Goswami. So I'm going to summarize what I just spoke and then we can have some questions or if anybody would have any reflections. The ultimate goal of meditation is the form of the Lord. We can start off the meditation by breath control, focusing on Omkara, but we discussed how the transcendental form and pastimes and glories and the most of all service is needed to keep the mind engaged. So that's the first point. The second point is that the deity of the Lord is the personal form of the Lord. It is, the Lord has a form, he's not impersonal, but his form is not like you and me. He will never let you down. And the process of achieving perfection is to go step by step, not try to jump the gun, not get impatient. Just by staying in the boat, we will make progress. That's a guarantee. But if we jump off, then nobody can help us anyway. The second one is undeviated. Undeviated doesn't mean that there is no deviation. It means that whenever there is deviation, we bring it back. And the third one is that you can yourself try. When there is a stressful situation, remove yourself from it. Try to take a few deep breaths, because remember, your breath is what reconciles your mind with your physical body, and your mind is what reconciles your intellect with the rest of yourself. And we do need the intervention of the intellect, because if we leave our mind to run wild, we're going to be thinking, willing, and feeling our way to I don't know where. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, reflection?
Thank you so much for the class. I like that point where you were talking about that the absence of distraction is not focus, but being aware of it is something like that. And that was simple but very profound. Also, I have a question that you mentioned about two things that Krishna talks in Bhagavad Gita. One was detachment and the other was
Practice.
practice. So practice is something that I can take instructions about and understand. This detachment part, if you would like to elaborate a little on it.
Vaisheshik Prabhu always says that we should be dispassionately methodical. And I think that's what detachment means. What I understand of it is that we do your duty, but you don't, just like get yourselves very emotionally involved in it. And it's not easy. Again, it's a journey. It's not something we can artificially jump to, because if you're like me, I feel a lot of things, I experience a lot of things, and I really feel them. I'm not detached, but I know when higher sense prevails, that it is beyond my control. The only thing I can control is my effort. So with my effort, I'm going to be systematic, I'm going to be methodical, I'm not going to leave any stone unturned. But the result is not in my control, and it's a training, it's a cultivation. Because we have such a tendency of being in control with everything, at least I do, that, I can do this, this, and this is the result I want. But Krishna has his ways of really making his way to your heart. And sometimes making his way to your heart means teaching us in ways which are not pleasant for us, that we're not in control. And detachment is not something that can be, you cannot demand it. You can work towards it by doing things methodically, by praying to Krishna, and then Krishna will, there will be a time where it just doesn't matter. In my personal life, I can reflect on things that I was very attached to, or was very hurt when something happened. Very, very genuinely hurt. I wasn't dispassionate about it, I wasn't detached. But I kept doing what I was supposed to do. And there was a time where it didn't matter. Those people, who hurt me didn't matter. So it gets to the point like that, slowly, one by one. Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you.
So the thing is, say like when there is planetary transit, it does impact your mind. And even though you might be like very like you know the right decision, sometimes it becomes so heavy in your mind that you are not able to make the right decision. So how does Krishna consciousness will help us to magnify those effects and do which is actually logical and also aligned with what we're supposed to do?
Thank you. Our mind is also a material thing, like it's a material element, it's a part of the material element, so it gets affected by other people, other planets, and it's real. Krishna consciousness, our practice of Krishna consciousness helps train the mind. It is, I must admit that it is a very advanced stage of mind, of practice of Krishna consciousness, where you can, on your own strength, nullify the impacts of material elements. At my stage, I often take shelter of devotees when there is a challenge that my mind is really unruly about. And I take that pause and I take guidance, because I know that on my own, my practice, my realization is not so strong, then I can withstand the effects of the material elements. Taking higher guidance, taking shelter of the scriptures, taking shelter of your practice. Sometimes it's even the mind is so disturbed that it's even hard to take shelter of your practice. You don't want to chant because the mind is so disturbed. And at that time, we seek association. One of our teachers said that the best wealth to have is that you must always have one person that you can talk about any challenges that you have with. Because then there is a window outside. In the mind, there is only suffering. Because on a good day, which is very rare for most normal people, your mind may be in control. Or you may be in control of your mind rather, but most of the days your mind is in control. So seeking shelter of association is I feel like that's the most powerful gift of Krishna consciousness. People who will tell you that, I understand how you feel, but maybe we should try this or that. Or even just them listening to you helps you get perspective. So thank you. Go ahead.
So how do we decide when your soul needs something and your intellect is saying something, because your intellect is saying something based on the experiences, but your soul is saying something because you know that in the end you want that. So how do we decide where to go?
Guidance. It's an advanced stage to be able to understand what your soul is saying. And I think that, it's like kids don't do that at home, kind of disclaimer there, that most people, we don't have the capacity to really understand what is good for us. And that's why in our scriptures also there is the three-point matrix, that Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Just my own intuition. Some people really do have a very powerful intuition, and you may be one of them. But I think to be able to distinguish that, is this really what I should be doing, or is it my mind trying to put it in the form that it's more palatable and I feel all happy about it? So it's very hard unless we are very attuned with what our mind is. It's better to always ask for help. It never goes in vain. But obviously you have to find trustworthy people who you can reveal your mind to. That's the caveat there. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for amazing class. You're talking about that philosophy will not help you in action. So can you elaborate on how can we imbibe philosophy so that eventually it can help us in action?
Sorry, what I meant was that if our realization is not at that level, then it's hard to put into practice. For example, my daughter, she's learning dance. And she has to really practice what her teacher is saying, because it doesn't come naturally to her. In the sense the positions and everything, that doesn't come naturally. So you have to practice. Or if you're learning a sport, you have to practice. Just reading the book will not help you. Not Bhagavatam, I'm not talking about Bhagavatam, I'm giving the example of sports. Or, manual. If you read a manual, okay, I'll talk about something that is close to my heart, cooking. Okay? You read cookbooks, you read recipes, but that's not going to help you cook something. They may give you the information, but you have to get into the kitchen, you have to do things, you will burn some things, you will undersalt or oversalt, and then you will learn. So that practice is very important, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying the philosophy does not help in action, but we need the practice to put the philosophy in action. So much so that it becomes your second nature. You don't have to think, okay, what did I read in the Srimad Bhagavatam in this situation? Because when the mind has to react, there is not so much time of a gap where you start, control yourself. If you're really agitated, which you never are, Satak Prabhu, but if you're really agitated about something, you don't have, if somebody, it's like the mind wants to punch them back, but you just need to calm yourself down. At that time, sometimes it's hard to think of the philosophy if you don't have support systems. That's what I'm saying. So the philosophy is the only way, because it trains the mind and the intellect. It gives fodder to the intellect. Otherwise, mind is trained, how do you know what to do? Who tells you what's right, what's wrong? It trains the intellect. But to be able to tap into the intellect, we need to do many things. That's what I meant. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up on that? Okay.
Clear.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for giving wonderful class today. My question is that you mentioned there is a process that when mind is fixed, it goes to the intellect stage where we can know what is right, what is wrong, and then it goes to complete bliss. So in this whole process, what does the soul and super soul have a role in that?
Well, the soul or the super soul, but the soul is what is experiencing the world through these layers, really. And the super soul is there as a well-wishing friend and a guide, always trying to, give us a way out, an exit. If the mind is disturbed, there is an exit. There's the as the overseer, the observer, and to provide us guidance whenever we tap into him. Krishna's love is not like the love of a controlling mother. He doesn't force us to do things the way he wants. He's there, he's given us things, he's given us people, and he leaves it up to us. So when we're ready to tap in, he's there. That's when, unless anybody, you want to add something to the answer? No? Okay. Anyone else wants to add to this? You're welcome to. Does that help reconcile things a little bit? Okay. Thank you.
But still, if you know that sometimes we are said that when we know what is right and wrong, it comes generally from Paramatma in our heart that he always guides us that what is right, what is wrong at this stage. So
that's true. It does come from the Paramatma in the heart. In the current age of distraction, I believe it is hard for most people to hear that voice. Actually, it's even hard for people to hear the voice of intellect. You can tell them that this is right and wrong. You can give them law books. But they're like, why should I care? I don't feel like it. I'm not like you. That's the age that we're living with. So in the advanced stages, the rishis and our, very advanced devotees, they are able to get the guidance from the super soul like that. But I think generally when I'm speaking for the most, at least for myself, that it's hard to hear that voice unless I'm really stable. In a restless mind, you can't hear anything, even a well-wisher's voice, let alone the Paramatma's voice. Yeah, does that help? Okay.
Thank you. Just wanted to add. Where to turn it on? Yeah. No, just it reminded me on the same question. When we are hearing voices, is it my mind speaking or is it really Krishna speaking to us? So I asked that question long time ago, and Mahaprakash Prabhu had told me that how do you differentiate? He said, well, don't act on it right away. If it is Krishna speaking to you, you will keep getting the same message again and again from different devotees. It will come to you. And if it's your mind, then it's your mind. So that's one way.
Thank you.
Practical way to do it. I don't know if it's possible all the time, but like making some big decisions in life, perhaps, should I do this now? Am I, get married now or not, or take this job or not, or things like that. That's a very, I would say, very material. But anything like, should I make this decision or not? I'm getting these ideas about my spiritual life, career, etc. And see if it's Krishna speaking, then the same message will come to you a few times. And it happened with me, so I can attest to that. Thank you.
That's a very valid point, I think. Thank you. And in scriptures that talk about education, because Panchakosh is used a lot in education of children. There's mention about how children should be trained to not give in to impulses, because that strengthens their intellect. Like, something happens, I want this, okay, go ahead. I want to do this, go ahead. It weakens the strength. So that, just kind of reflecting on the point. Thank you. Prabhu, you had a question.
No, I was saying this. Sorry. The same thing, the intelligence is also given by Krishna, and Paramatma speaks through intelligence as well, as long as we are imbibing the right knowledge.
Prabhu, I'm not able to hear you very clearly.
Sorry, I said that intelligence is also given by Krishna, and sometimes Paramatma speaks through that as well, as long as we are able to contemplate or digest the knowledge that we are consuming properly. So that could be a way of him kind of helping us discriminate between right and wrong.
For sure. I mean, ultimately, there's two aspects to any equation. There's your endeavor and there's Krishna's mercy. What we can control is our endeavor. in anything in life. And what we can't control and can only beg for is Krishna's mercy. The intelligence, from Krishna comes remembrance and forgetfulness. Everything comes from Krishna. But on the flip side, we can't just say, okay, fine, I'm going to do whatever, and everything's coming from Krishna anyway, right? So we have to do the things that we were discussing primarily about what I can do in terms of my endeavor to control the mind, to control my reactions, to feed my intellect. But ultimately, it's Krishna's mercy. And we know that Krishna's mercy doesn't follow any system. It sees the heart, and it sees the mercy of the devotees, and it comes, grabs you. But we can't plan for that case. We have to do our endeavor. And going back to detachment, that's what detachment means. That you do your part, and then wait for Krishna's mercy. That it can come, or, I'm here in the boat, waiting for Krishna's mercy. Thank you, Prabhu. Go ahead.
I had one more question. You said something about
Dispassionate, methodical.
Methodical, yes. So, do we have any examples in Srimad Bhagavatam or any stories so we can read it and we can get an idea?
The story that came to my mind is Ambarish Maharaj, but I'm going to ask if you have any, just in your duties, doing your duties. Prabhu had asked a question about detachment, and I had used it in that sense. I think the story of Ambarish Maharaj comes to my mind, that he was doing his duty. Like, he wasn't fazed, he wasn't disturbed by how Durvasa Muni reacted, and after that he was just dispassionate, like just doing it. Dispassionate is not a negative thing, it's just that you're not, when you're passionate, you're like, we're going to do this, Prabhu, and a lot of what we do is like, a lot of passion is there, but dispassionate means not being affected by the ups and downs. He fasted for a whole year, and in the end, he was just about to drink water, or he drank water, and there was a big upheaval because of that. He wasn't furious, he was a king. He could have taken up, some stern action, but he didn't. He was just methodical about the whole stuff. He asked his teachers, what should I do now? And then Krishna took care. So that's an example of dispassion. Yeah, the curse for Parikshit Maharaj. He wasn't all emotional about it. I'm going to die in 7 days. I'm the king. I can call in higher powers and nullify the curse. But he just was very methodical about it. And I think that example is more for how we lead our lives in preparation for the final test also. Just be methodical about the things, which means taking care of your physical body, your material needs, your financial needs, health, everything has to be taken care of. Do you have a follow-up? And then, no? Okay.
Ambarish Maharaj, when he was Jad Bharat, right? Sorry. I'm sorry. So, my question is from Jad Bharat's example. When he got the intelligence, when he was self-realized, he preferred not to interfere in worldly things. He preferred to be kind of, playing dumb. I mean, that's an inappropriate. Yeah. But that's one of the ways of using your intelligence, or kind of being self-realized, where you just keep yourself detached, and you may look like a fool, or...
Even though he was a fool? He pretended to be like a fool?
He was intelligent, but he was
pretending to be like a fool.
To be a fool.
So I think that, we're having a philosophical discussion right now, because the concept of detachment is very different in all of our lives. For me, detachment may mean, letting go when my children want to do something that I don't like. But for you, detachment may mean something else. So the philosophical discussion can be had, and you're right, Jad Bharat was detached, but he was Jad Bharat, and the Bhagavatam talks about him. He wasn't me or you, So in our lives, excuse me? Giddy. Prabhu's talking about the Guinness Book of World Records. Only a few people make it there. Most people have to live ordinary lives, right? So that's the point. It's true. There are self-realized souls. We read about them. And even in our lives, you will see there will be people who are so detached, who don't own anything, and they're completely happy. But that can't be a prescription for how you must live your life. That we should follow the mood, we can follow the footsteps, but we cannot imitate. So follow the mood, take the learnings. The learning we can get from there is, he was so attached to the deer, right? After doing all of that, he got attached to it. So I must watch out for my attachments, even in the name of helping people. But we can't imitate somebody else, because if we imitate, we fall down. We don't have the capacity. It's like you have to climb the ladder, but you have to climb the ladder according to your capacity. If you take a jump that's higher than your capacity, we're going to fall down and break our bones.
So your behavior has to be from self-realization.
Self-realization and guidance. Because I think for the sake of our discussion, I am cautious of just doing things on the basis of self-realization. I think nobody is beyond guidance, so the two go together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice discussion. I think I'm going to wrap up now, if that's all. Yes, Ananya? Oh, thank you very much. Bharat, Lord Ram's Bharat? Yes, Lord Ram's Bharat was very detached. Thank you, Ananya. Okay, you wanted to say something? Vishesh Prabhu?
One tiny thing, I can't recall who was the speaker, but they were mentioning about how to know if it's Krishna's or Paramatma's intuition or your own mind is that the voice of Krishna will be subtle, because Krishna doesn't like to impose his will.
Right.
So that you won't be very attached to the outcome of that voice. But if it's your own mind playing tricks on you, then you would be very attached to whether it happens or not. So that's the way, 99% of the time.
The mind demands it, right now.
And I had a kind of like question also about, because I followed these pranayama and meditating on the Omkar for multiple years before getting into chanting. And there also, many times it was all about getting your mind back to either a point between your eyebrows or to your breath, and also we get it to the chant. So seemingly the process seems similar. Of course, the result is remarkably different. But at times I personally struggle with trying to think of that even when I was doing something and I was achieving whatever result, here if I have to do something as simple as that, how can that give me same or even better result?
Right. I think Srila Prabhupada talks about it, that Krishna consciousness is very simple, but it's so simple that sometimes we miss the point. We think that we need something more elaborate. How can something simple really give me the result? And we minimize the power of it. I think your practices with pranayam and meditation on the Omkara probably have placed you nicely to be able to meditate on the holy name and the form of the Lord. Because many times when people struggle with their practice of japa, these recommendations are made that you take deep breaths, you try to focus on the focus on the sound is the foundation of japa. So I know that it seems simple, like you said, but as we all know, when the moment we start getting into the intricacies, it is simple for the simple-minded. So it becomes, it's very deep. It may be simple, but it's very deep because it's capable of giving us the results. The impersonal meditation, the focusing on the centers, it can take us to the mall, the lobby. But the lobby mall doesn't satisfy our heart. The whole game is of the heart, Prabhu. It's all about it. It's all about the hook. But there's only one place, Mano Yatra Prasidati. Only with Krishna's lotus feet, everything is reconciled. Thank you. I'm going to finish, but I just want to say one thing to everybody. There is one thing that your mind must be very attached to, and it must demand like anything. You should not be dispassionate about it at all. Do you know what it is? It's the parampara has sanctioned it. Our parampara was not dispassionate about it. Srila Prabhupada brought the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was the only distributor distributing the Srimad Bhagavatam. He wasn't dispassionate about Srimad Bhagavatam. And it was his request. Our spiritual masters are not dispassionate about that. In the service of Krishna, as much passion as is needed. As much anxiety as is needed. We are taking anxiety. Even though Krishna's voice is supposed to keep us calm, we are following Krishna's path, we are willingly taking anxiety. And you know what? I feel that when we take anxiety for Krishna, somehow magically Krishna removes other anxieties. Because people are suffering in this world. People are suffering because they don't have a place to stay, they don't have jobs, they don't have financial security, they have relationship issues. But if we actually put our anxiety, the quota of anxiety is fixed. We try to put our anxiety in serving the orders of Krishna and the spiritual masters. We feel at least that anxiety is dovetailed and we don't feel the other pains. I'm not minimizing anybody's personal pains, but I'm just saying that that's one place we're allowed to feel passionate. And we must. I mean, Srila Prabhupada is spending all of his energy. Imagine waking up early in the morning and translating Bhagavatam. It must be important for Srila Prabhupada. He was the only distributor who distributed his printed sets. We are so many. We can definitely distribute 100,000 sets. So please, fix the mind. Yatra mana yatra prasidati. Fix the mind in following the instructions of the spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada. Read the Bhagavatam and share it with others. Not only will our mind be satisfied, but we will see that minds of so many people around the world who need this knowledge will be satisfied and will be in complete bliss. Thank you so much for all of you for really pushing on the Srimad Bhagavatam. I get all those messages on the group. It's music to my heart. I'm really grateful and I'm in your service if I can assist you in any way. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa